Cobra Kai never dies. But maybe it should have? Now, before all you karate kids come at me with your karate, I just want to make one thing absolutely clear. I didn't hate Season 6 Part 2 at all. In fact, I think it is a massive step up from Part 1, which I found to not be a bad part or selection of episodes of Cobra Kai, but easily the least good. And Season 6 Part 2 is definitely much better than Part 1, but unfortunately, at least for me, it is still plagued with the issues that Part 1 of Season 6 had, even though it does fix and redeem some elements. Now, just to be clear, just to be extra clear, this is no ruining the legacy of the series or ruining the series completely final season bad. I wouldn't even say it's a bad season, I would just say it's the least good season of Cobra Kai. It's not bad, but the bar was set so very high with the first 5 seasons. I am a little disappointed, but this is no final season of Game of Thrones level quality drop. I just think it's a marginal drop down from pretty damn high to somewhere in the middle range where I'm left a little disappointed, but also a little bit confused. Because all of my issues don't really come down to how this season is doing things, but more down to how it has to do things because of how Season 5 wrapped up. Season 5 feels like the natural conclusion to almost every character and their arcs, the main central themes, the main plot, everything concluded in such a natural, beautiful, and satisfying way. And then Season 6 is just like more and again, and so everything's starting to feel a little repetitive. Everything's starting to feel a little stale and a little bit like, we've done this before, didn't we? And it ended. And I just find that curious because this isn't like a new group of creators that have come on to just extend the show with a 6th and then 7th to maybe, I don't know, 15 seasons of the show. This is the same people. I just find that kind of fascinating, kind of bizarre, a little annoying, but really just more kind of intriguing in a bad way, where I'm like, why? Why did you do it like that? Did you think it was not going to get a Season 6? That would make the most sense, because so much of this season feels like they undermine or undo the conclusions of characters' arcs in Season 5, or they just add on extra baggage, extra stuff to happen. It doesn't feel like a natural final season, a natural conclusion to the main quest. It feels like bonus DLC. And sure, that DLC is still really fun and enjoyable, because I love the world. I want to play extra content. But it feels more like that. Extra content, not a final epic conclusion. But I think it wants to be. And it's an odd sensation. I don't know how they've done this. I also don't know why they've done this in this way. They've kind of backed themselves into a corner. No one forced them to make it like this, but at the same time, maybe Netflix did, which is crazy. Maybe Netflix were like, you're getting 5. And then they went, what if you got 6? Which is crazy. The irony of a show that's on Netflix, a channel that is notorious for cancelling shows too early, giving a show one too many, potentially, seasons, the irony is not lost on me. I just think it would be more interesting if certain characters hadn't had their plots resolved. So if Miguel and Robbie had never become friends, this season I think would be more exciting and more interesting if at some point in these like middle 5 episodes, they finally became friends and they're fighting back to back finally as brothers from another mothers in the tournament. I just think that would be more exciting rather than them starting the season as best buddies and brothers, and then you have to manufacture some stuff so that you still get that moment where they're like, now they're teaming up again. It's like, okay, but you could have just structured this differently, which is just kind of curious because it feels like it's one of the tentpole shows of Netflix, so they must have known they were doing this final season, and I just find it interesting on a writing structural level of how you slowly build up things throughout the show, because they did take their time with so many things, and yet with some things it now feels like, oh, you rushed it. Did you think Season 5 was going to be the end? Were you not sure you were going to get this final season? I don't know, I just find that kind of fascinating and curious, and I still really love the chemistry between everybody, and I still like seeing these characters just do stuff. But that's kind of what it feels like. It just kind of feels like they're just kind of doing stuff. because everything has kind of been resolved in a natural way. And so all of the beefs that have kind of been reignited in this season don't feel like the natural final conclusion. It feels like it finished, and then they're like, oh, but what if this forced melodrama happens so they don't like each other for an episode? But then in another episode, they like each other again. And it's like, yeah, okay, we kind of did that. We kind of did that so many times that when it was finally resolved, it was so satisfying. It's like Hawk and Eli have had such a strained relationship. Now it feels like they were at a point of peace together. And now everything between them feels kind of, forced, manufactured. And I feel like that's the same for every storyline. 4 seasons of Sam versus Tori was exciting and intense and emotional. And then when Tori finally turned in that final episodes of season 5, it was like, oh, what a satisfying end to this beef. And now it's like, oh, they've got beef again. Okay, sure. Starting to get a little repetitive. And so to have a final season that's extended and longer, 5 episodes than a usual season, you'd think would work so well to give every storyline time to breathe and live and to be concluded, but they concluded everything in season 5. And so instead of these extra 5 episodes feeling like they are giving time and giving service to everybody, it kind of feels like most of the plot lines now have to have extra baggage, extra filler, and extra stuff just to kind of pad the runtime, which is weird because there are so many new characters, all of them completely underdeveloped, all of the themes of bullying and that schoolyard pressure of being a bully and being turned into a bully and that anti-hero redemption that is so integral to what the first 5 seasons of Cobra Kai did so expertly, kind of feels like it's barely there, and when it is there, like there's one new character, and he gets about 2 seconds where it's like, oh, I understand why he is the way he is, bullying something, and it's like, wow, you've done this so well for 5 seasons. To do it in this way now, it feels lazy, it feels repetitive, it just kind of feels like an afterthought, like they're like, oh god, we gotta put this in, and it just, it's kind of overstuffed, and the stuff that does work, there's a really powerful, emotional locker room scene where you get this melancholy sense that it is finally going to be over with these characters, and it's so beautiful, it's so heartwarming, it's exciting, it pumps you up, and the last episode has some great action. There is some great action throughout all of it. All of the karate and the fighting and the action is so exciting and fun, as it always is. It might not ever live up to the hype and excitement of Season 2's finale of the school riot, the karate riot at the school, but honestly, I feel like every season tries to recapture that scene, and whilst it's always entertaining and incredible, it's never as good. I was just not expecting a scene like that to happen, and when it happened, I was overwhelmed, and I still think it's my favorite scene in terms of action for the series. But that being said, all the action we do get is really, really fun, but it doesn't carry that same emotional weight that so many of the previous seasons did, just because it's a bit of rinse and repeat. We've seen it before, repetitive nature, all of the melodrama is just manufactured and forced. I've said the same 6 words again and again and again, but that's really what this season feels like. It feels like something we've seen again and again and again, but for some reason it worked doing it so many times, because when we reached that end, it was done, it was over, and it felt earned and finished and concluded, and now it's just like, more again, and it's like, well, I will eat it up, because I love me some Cobra Kai, but also, I just think that you should have structured this differently, because why did you end the show if you knew you were doing a final season? There is also a very controversial subplot to do with Daniel and Mr. Miyagi that we learn through kind of history of what happened to Mr. Miyagi in the past. I kind of totally see, especially what happens in the final episode, episode 10, I totally see where they're going with this. I still think maybe they're going a little too far with that. Maybe they're kind of pushing it in a direction where I'm like, I don't know if I love that. Although I do see what they're doing at it, and in terms of really enriching his character and making him more nuanced than he was before, for sure. I just think maybe just because he was never in the series, kind of changing and twisting his past in this particular way takes a little bit away from that magical presence that he did have in those Karate Kid movies, this larger-than-life presence, and kind of turning him into a more modern TV show character and character that's got more layers. I understand why they did it, and it sounds insane to say they shouldn't do something like that to make him more complex and interesting. I just think maybe for that one character, leave him as this kind of thing that is bigger and better than everything, because I don't know, I just kind of like that more, even though I think the entire series itself has been around turning a black and white villain, Johnny, from the original movie, into the most nuanced and likable character with all these flaws, but you love him. And so it is like, it's the baseline premise of this series is to create these really nuanced portrayals of heroes and villains, anti-heroes and all this stuff, and they're all just people rather than comical 80s villains from an 80s movie. So I don't know why I dislike turning the classic 80s hero into something more nuanced, but it kind of like, I was like, oh, I don't know if I like that. But also, they did do some de-aging, finally, with a certain character. And I found that to be pretty gross. But that's a personal thing. That's a personal thing where my brain just kind of like doesn't enjoy seeing that. So I just wish they hadn't. One element of this season that I really did enjoy was that for so much of this series, it's been Miyagi-Do versus Cobra Kai. And we were leading into this tournament thinking it would just be this. But there is a third karate group in this called Iron Dragon. And I think that's really exciting and fun to add this extra new layer and element. And I think there is a twist later on with the Iron Dragon that I, for some reason, I don't know why, because in hindsight, of course, I did not see coming at all, and it was genuinely like really exciting, because I think a big issue with final seasons, and it's unavoidable with how they structure the show in terms of setting it now in this tournament, you've got to have some new characters that come into it, but it can kind of be underwhelming because it's like, oh, but I've been following all these heroes for so long to bring in final villains in a final season. It's like, well, I don't care about these guys compared to these guys. And so the way they kind of twist Iron Dragon into something more than what it was, I thought was really exciting, and I'm really keen for the final 5 episodes, even though, kind of like every single thing in this final season, it's like, why did you make season 5 end the way it ends when you're going to undo everything? In conclusion, Cobra Kai is still a really good show, maybe not the greatest show. And with only 5 episodes left of the show to come out in a couple of months, maybe this show isn't going to end up on top. But maybe that's totally fine. The original message of Karate Kid and Cobra Kai was never about winning and coming out on top. It was more about the friends that you met along the way. Or more accurately, the friends that were your enemies at one point and then you punched for a bit and now you're mates that you made along the way. That being said, if Miguel doesn't end this series with a big karate kick into somebody's face, I will be furious. Oh, and brief spoilers. Silver's back, and I bloody love it. How'd he get out of prison? Something, pretty flimsy writing dialogue stuff. I forget about season 5. That wasn't the end. Silver's back, and I love it. Honestly, him coming back reinvigorated my love for this show, and like, you just kind of need a final villain that you really want to see someone punch in the face. And even though he did kick him in the face and beat him in the series finale of season 5, they're gonna kick him in the face again, and guess what? I actually don't mind that at all. Him coming back really, like, it perked me up. I was like, oh, okay, no. Let's go. Also, killing generic bully guy from Cobra Kai at the end, really interesting, really fascinating. Super curious how that's going to play out. What a bold cliffhanger to put it on. They've never really gone into that kind of realm of storytelling before. It's always been quite a fun show. Considering the show is mostly children beating up other children, it's always been quite fun. And so to kill a kid during the karate tournament is really interesting. And it's the reason I don't hate the Mr. Miyagi thing, even though I think it's kind of a bit off and a bit weird to do that to his character in the past. I still kind of see where they're going to take this in those final 5 episodes. And it's now not like, oh, they're going to win the tournament or they're going to lose and that's going to be the end. It's like, no, what is the tournament even going to happen? Like, what are these last 5 episodes even going to be? It is a very exciting end. And I do think if maybe it had all come out in 15 episodes and I just watched it all, if the 5 episodes land the ending, a lot of my issues with the first 10 episodes will be gone because it'll be like, well, we got to spend more time with our characters that I love, and the conclusion totally worked because this is the first season that isn't able to be watched all at once, where you get the beginning, middle, and then the end to see how it all ties together. So I'm still holding out hope that this will be a fantastic season and not a kind of a letdown.